Hello, I'm Dr. John Jory. Welcome to my hBase. Please ensure with your health professional that you are okay to do these exercises. The body's connective tissue is known as fascia. It provides a tensile framework for the muscles and removes toxic seepage. As such, it is responsible for the body's vitality, for its flexibility, for its youthfulness and its strength. The body possesses three focuses of power. The main one is the donjon and is situated in the lower abdomen. The thymus is behind the breastbone and the upper chest, and the third eye is behind the centre of the forehead. Turbo breathing is very straightforward. You keep your glutes tight and your rib cage raised and your mouth closed, breathing through your nose. The first 5 breaths you breathe out and down into donjon. Breath 6, 7 and 8 you breathe up and into the thymus, 9 and 10 further up and into your third eye. Turbo angle is the angle which is formed when your elbows are about halfway between 90 and 180 degrees. It is a vital link in the chain of coordinated movements which enable you to project your turbo energy from your dantian out through your body. Turbo wrists. In hBase, the wrists are always bent forward in a flexed position rather than bent backwards in a cocked position. This is because when the wrists are in a cocked position, the dynamic resilience of the fascia is neutralised and one's turbo energy is not accessible. In scarecrow, you stand with your feet firmly together, your glutes tightened and your elbows slightly above your shoulder level. Your elbows are at turbo angle and your wrists are in the turbo position. You'll have to excuse my left wrist, it's been broken twice and it doesn't bend too well. To gain maximum fascial torsion, take your elbows back as far as they can go. Then take your wrists back as far as they can go, and then take your fingers back as far as they can go. Rotate your head as far as it will go to the right to ready yourself for the first beat of the next movement. We have a sheet of fascia or connective tissue which covers the front of our abdomen all the way from our shoulders down to our pelvis. On inhaling, that is on the breaths from 6 until 10, you should feel this sheet of fascia tightening and stretching. It is the contraction of the fascia at the front of the abdominal wall and in front of the spinal column on the inside which produces the stooping of old age. This exercise prevents this from happening and, if it is already present, reverses the process. There is a natural tendency to push the chin and the head forward while doing these exercises. You must neutralise this by keeping the chin back and the rear of the head vertical at all times. In praying mantis, you must stand with your heels shoulders width apart at all times. You can ensure this at the beginning by standing with your feet either side of a yoga mat as you practice. You must avoid at all costs the urge to stand with one heel behind the other. To perform the turn in praying mantis, imagine that you're standing on 2 railway lines. On the count of 9, swivel on your heels, and then on the count of 10, use your hips to carry the front foot across to the other line. Then use your hips to carry the back foot across to its opposite line, leaving you facing the other direction. When making the turn in praying mantis, gently place your foot down toes first. This takes a bit of practice, but do not get into the habit of thumping your foot down heel first, as over time this will damage your knees. There are many significant elements in each hBase movement. And in praying mantis, the most significant one is the stretching of the hip on the side of the back leg. This is attained by keeping the foot flat on the ground, the knee straight, and pushing forward on the hip as you bend the other knee. For the action of the arms in praying mantis, Lock in turbo wrist and turbo elbow. Then concentrate on the position of the elbows and everything else will take care of itself. In praying mantis, maximum torsion is applied by twisting the hands outward in the direction of the thumbs. On the count of 3, your elbows should be in front and level with your shoulders. Then move them horizontally so that on the count of 5, the elbows are directly beside your shoulders. From count 6 to 8, take the elbows backwards and downwards in as tight a circle as possible with maximum torsion. Bring the elbows as close as possible towards each other behind your lower back. On the count of 8, lock your back knee and bend your front knee so that you produce the maximum amount of stretch on your back hip. Ensure that you keep your torso upright and don't give in to the urge to bend forward at this point. On count 9, contract your glutes and bring the base of your pelvis forward. This will enable you to swivel on your heels and also to carry your front foot across to the other side. There is no need to be too intense when performing praying mantis. Simply keep your back foot flat on the floor, your back knee straight, your head upright, and apply as much torsion as you can without getting too extreme. The eagle is the same as the praying mantis, except the rotation of the hands is reversed. Instead of rotating the thumbs outwards so that you're looking at your palms, rotate the little fingers outwards so that you're looking at the backs of your hands. On the count of 3, your wrists should be crossed and directly above your head. On the count of 5, your wrists should be as far upwards and backwards as you can take them. Remember that all this time you are breathing outwards. Always keep in mind that breathing is a vital part of turbo bass. When breathing out, feel your breathing go right down into the deepest part of your pelvis. When breathing in, feel it go right up to the top of your head at your third eye. Although it is anti-intuitive, with turbo breathing you breathe out first. So you breathe out 2, 3, 4, 5, in 7, 8, 9, 10. In the beginning, you might find that you have to take short breaths during the movement. That's okay, it's perfectly natural. However, keep in mind that you are evolving towards 5 beats breathing in and 5 beats breathing out. You don't need to do every turbo bass session at full torsion. It's okay to do it, say, at 80% most of the time. However, once or twice a week, you should make sure that you do the whole session at full twist. Remember, for the praying mantis and the eagle, you must have both feet flat on the ground and your back knee straight. The only part of your legs which moves is the front knee, which bends. You must fully lock your back knee on the count of 8. Keep in mind that the principal focus of this movement is the stretching of the hip on the side of the back leg. This is especially important when you lock the leg on the count of 8. As life goes on, most people forget to breathe into their upper chest. Evolving into full expansion of the upper chest while breathing is one of the great benefits of turbo bass. Turbo base evolved from a lifetime in martial arts. So, in addition to their health-giving properties, the exercises in turbo base provide a developmental base for sound martial art practices. The swallow is the most important of the turbo base exercises. It stretches and massages every muscle in the body, especially the vitally important muscles in the pelvic area. Attention to the form of this exercise is of the utmost importance. There is a knack to performing the swallow. Developing the tensile strengths of the fascia enables you to lower yourself to the ground and raise yourself again with little muscle effort. Otherwise, it is very hard work. Swallow is the only turbo base exercise in which the arms are kept absolutely straight. You then rotate them as far as possible in the direction of the little fingers and look over your shoulder at the hand which is on the side of the supporting leg. As you bend your supporting leg and lower your pelvis, your body will tilt a little forward. It takes months and years to develop the strength and coordination to lower your pelvis right onto your heel. When you reach the limit of your current development, your knee will bend no further. When this happens, accept it. Please don't try and get closer to the ground by bending forward at the waist. This is the commonest mistake that beginners and many advanced students make. When lowering yourself down, pull your pelvis away from the heel of the outstretched leg. This produces a cantilever effect which carries you down. If you don't do this and try to drop on your dead weight, it doesn't happen. Remember that you are breathing out on beats 1 to 5 as you descend, and you are breathing in on beats 6 to 10 as you are rising. This exercise entails the most difficult breathing of the entire series. The principal benefit in the swallow comes from raising and lowering yourself smoothly and steadily. Do not fall into the trap of dropping yourself quickly down on counts 1 to 5 and then rocketing up on count 6. On the count of 8, your hands should be level with your shoulders. On the count of 9, they should be directly above your head and you should be looking at them. And on the count of 10, you'll be moving into your position for the next movement. The unaccustomed usage of the pelvic muscles releases so many toxins that people frequently find that for a few weeks after they start turbo base, they can get mild flu-like symptoms for the next day or two. Don't be alarmed, it's quite harmless and will pass. The second half of the turbo base exercises are dynamic exercises which are performed from a fixed base. You stand with your feet 1.5 shoulders width apart and your toes pointing straight forward. Your feet do not move during these exercises. Dynamic transfer push involves standing with your hips square to the line of your heels and your weight on the back foot. You move your body forward until your weight is over the other foot and then turn to face the other direction. The line between the heels is known as the line of movement. You keep your hips as square to the line of movement as you possibly can and you don't move your feet. Keep the soles of your feet squarely on the ground and don't ride up onto the edges of them. On the count of 1 to 3, you move along the line of motion from one side to the other. 4 is you bend your knee more. 5, you lock your back leg. And 6, you turn. All the time you're endeavouring to keep your feet flat on the ground and your toes pointing straight forward. The turn is the vital part of all the dynamic movements. In the push turn, lock your back knee and bend your front knee. While making the turn, keep your back knee rigidly locked and force your centre of gravity as far as possible along the line of movement. There is a natural tendency to make the turn by moving your centre of gravity back towards the middle and then turning your hips. You must be aware of this from the word go and must avoid it at all costs. There is no benefit in doing this. From beats 1 to 3, move your twisted arms up so that your elbows are level with your shoulders and your forearms are together in front of your face. On beats 4 and 5, take your elbows as far up, out and back as possible. On beats 6 to 10, have your arms as twisted as possible and carry them through the widest possible circle right around until they get as close as they can behind your back. From this position, when you make the turn, they will be in a position to commence the next movement. Remember to breathe out from counts 1 to 5 and then in from count 6 to 10. Our intuition tells us that it would be better to breathe in from 1 to 5, but if intuition produced skill, we would all be martial arts legends. By this stage of the routine, you will probably notice that you are sweating quite heavily. While to the casual observer, you might look as though you're not really doing much in the way of effort. The internal torsions demanded by hBase are actually quite hard work. In transfer pull, you start with your weight over your front foot and you move backwards in order to transfer it over your back foot. The torsion of your arms is reversed, with you holding your elbows at turbo angle and rotating your palms outwards as much as you can. On counts 1, 2 and 3 you move backwards. On count 4 you lock the outlying leg. On count 5 you tilt your pelvis. And on count 6 you perform the turn so that you end up facing in the other direction along the line of movement. Carry your arms upwards in front of you so that on the count of 3 they are directly above your head. On the count of 5 they should be as far back and as far outward as they can go, and then on the count of 10 they should be crossed behind your back. Remember to breathe out on counts 1 to 5 and then in on count 6 to 10. This is anti-intuitive to start with, as the movement of the shoulders makes it feel as though you should be breathing in. It is quite important, however, that you persevere with the correct breathing technique. Joint degeneration with ageing occurs because joints are not used to the full range of their movement. When not regularly and gently stretched to the limits of their range, they virtually dry up and then become arthritic and degenerate. If you don't look after your hips, knees and ankles properly, your exercise capacities and general health will deteriorate rapidly as you get older. Unfortunately, most sports and exercise routines are ignorant of this fact, and the linear exercise they provide is not good for the joints. The turn is very important for both bodily health and the martial arts aspect of hBase. You need to keep your knee locked and push your centre of gravity away from the centre as you turn. This is an easier turn than with the transfer push, but it is just as vital that you do it properly. At the beginning, you will probably find that your hips are very tight in this exercise and in the preceding dynamic transfer push. It is very important that you do not try and force anything. Just go as far as you can and stop there. There is always tomorrow. You have probably noticed that as people age, they shuffle more and more until finally they need a walking stick or a wheelchair to get around. This is principally due to the muscles in their hip and pelvic region getting more and more stiff and tight because of incorrect or lack of use. Most martial arts say that they work from the hip, from dantian, but they don't. If you are a martial artist, these two dynamic transfer exercises, the forward and the back ones, will give you a great base from which to develop effective martial arts techniques. We now changed from 5 beats to the bar to 4 beats to the bar. This is because all the remaining exercises are dynamic applications of the transfer exercises that we've just done. There are 4 phases to each of these exercises: across, back, across, back. We all have a tendency to jump ahead of the beat. It is important that you don't do this, as it's that last few seconds which brings most benefit from these exercises. Don't forget that the breathing is important. You breathe out on the odd beats and in on the even beats. You must understand that the important factor in these dynamic movements is the hip movement. The arm movements come. When you get the hips moving properly, the arm movements flow from the hip movement. Until you get the hip movements done properly, the arm movements cannot work. Pushing into the turn rather than pulling back into the turn is undoubtedly the most difficult part of these dynamic exercises. Don't try too hard at the beginning if you can't do it properly. Just be aware that you're not doing it properly, and be aware that you will develop into good technique with time. With turbo bass, it's hard to see from the outside what's going on the inside. People often have the impression that with the arm movements, the arms are just sort of flopping around. But this is not the case. The arms are twisted as much as possible, and they are very deliberate movements that are made. In the same fashion, there is a lot of coordinated muscular movement in the pelvis during the turbo bass exercises. Once again, this takes a long time to actually perfect, but it's important you understand it is controlled movement. It's not just flopping your pelvis wherever it happens to go. These techniques were originally known as the water bowl techniques, because you were supposed to be able to balance a bowl of water on each hand while performing the movements and not spill any. I have found over time that your arms turn further, but it's a good exercise to do as a beginner to get your coordination right. There is a natural tendency to lean into the techniques and to project your head forward. All turbo-based techniques originate in and are driven from the dantian in the lower abdomen. If you lean forward, you lose contact with the dantian and your movements will have no power. The double dynamic techniques can be a bit daunting to start with, but don't worry. With practice, you can achieve anything. As I already explained with the single dynamic techniques, the important thing is to get your hips right. Once the movement flows correctly from your hips, the hands take care of themselves. The secret to good martial technique, as well as having a healthy body which works to maximum efficiency, is in the ability to move your pelvis independently of your chest. Developing this ability is one of the principal advantages of the dynamic exercises. If you don't develop the ability to move your pelvis independently of your chest, you will just get stiffer and stiffer as you get older. The only activities which I have come across which intrinsically develop this are Hapkido, Latin dancing and horse riding. Many martial arts and other activities say that they develop this ability to use the pelvis independently of the chest, but they don't. Why it is so vital to develop this particular technique is because the pelvis is the main repository for stagnant lymph. Keeping your toes pointed to the front as much as possible is a vital aspect of turbo bass which is often overlooked. Because of the effects of gravity, the seepage of lymph tends to accumulate easily in the ankles. This is why many old people have their ankles bulging over the sides of their shoes. Arthritis occurs when joints aren't exercised through the full range of their movement. This is because the synovial fluid, the lubricant that keeps the joints healthy, needs frequent stimulating and wide range of movement to be at optimum production. You will find that as your practice of turbo bass becomes more and more established, your control of your breathing will develop more and more. An especially deep inhalation into the third eye on the final beat will markedly increase the range of your torsion. Good breathing movement vigorously exercises the muscles of the pelvis, the abdomen and the chest. It massages all the internal organs from the prostate up to the thyroid. It is especially beneficial in expanding the upper chest and activating the thymus. The push-pull exercises will seem a lot easier than the previous double exercises, and that is because they are. For that last half second, however, it is really important to have an extra push going forward and an extra pull coming back. While the movements are simple, it is in these last few movements that you can really develop your ability to project power forward and to draw power back. This is of great significance if you are wishing to develop your martial arts abilities. In addition to massaging fascia, toning muscles, lubricating joints, and stimulating internal organs, turbo bass adds another dimension to your health regime by flushing the acupuncture channels. Turbo bass keeps the brain healthy by producing endorphins and by stimulating cerebrospinal fluid production. It also keeps the carotid arteries flexible, youthful and healthy, and prevents the development of osteoarthritis in the neck. If you are a martial artist, turbo bass helps your development in several ways. Development of functional fascia gives you amazing physical strength without being cluttered up by useless muscle. This enables you to have speed, agility and power. You can exercise more focused, more powerful and less brutal punches and kicks without compromising your balance, and your grapples, throws and joint twists will be more effective with less effort when your power comes through the fascia from dantian. If you're not a martial artist, you can just enjoy the health benefits of turbo bass. You will soon see that these are quite extensive in their own right and are augmented by appropriate attention to one's eating patterns and meditation. We are now coming to the end of this session of turbo bass. I beg you to remember that it's not intensity but consistency which enables one to develop in this area. 6 times a week is the ideal frequency of sessions to get maximum benefit from your training. Hi, this is Holford Jewellery here and welcome to Turbo Bass, or hBase as it's known. If you have any medical conditions at all, please consult your medical practitioner to ensure that you're fit to perform these exercises. For more information, go to holfordworld.com.au/freepath.